Want to see a real GED writing example from someone who got a perfect score on the GED essay? Then stick around. Hi, this is Parker from Test Prep Champions teaching you how to pass the GED fast. You can get started by clicking subscribe down below and hitting that notification bell. So today I'm really excited because I'm sharing with you a GED essay that got a perfect score, and there's so much that you can learn here to boost your own score. So if you're going for that big perfect score in the GED essay, then this is definitely the video you don't want to miss. So the prompt is to analyze the arguments presented in both the press release and the letter to the editor, and in your response develop an argument in which you explain how one position is better supported than the other, and you're to incorporate relevant and specific evidence from both sources into the argument. So this is a very typical prompt, and there's no need to read the press release and the letter to the editor to still get the most out of this exercise here. So this is how you want to do a 5-paragraph essay, and this will let you maximize your score on the writing section. So you want to start off with an introductory paragraph. You want to have 3 body paragraphs and a conclusion, and then 3 to 7 sentences is what you want to aim for per paragraph. And we're going to break these down as we go throughout the example here. So to write a winning first paragraph, which is your introduction, you want to start off with a topic sentence that just tells the reader what the essay is about. You then want to acknowledge both of the positions. So you could do author A's position and author B's position in 1 sentence or in 2 sentences. I recommend 2 sentences because I think that's easier, but you can do it in 1 and that's perfectly valid. So lastly, and most importantly though, you want to have a thesis statement, all right? And that's a fancy way of saying that you want to include your claim about which position is best supported. Okay. So now let's look at this perfect essay here, and we're going to go piece by piece. So let's look at the perfect example of a topic sentence. So in the introductory paragraph, the writer says, both the press release and the letter to the editor offer positions that are supported by both fact and opinion. So this is a great example of a topic sentence here, just very clear and to the point, and nothing fancy, but it doesn't have to be. It tells us what the topic is. And so here are some topic sentence formulas that you can use, and one is just simply blank is a controversial issue. So whatever the essay is about, if it's about the best age to give a teen a cell phone, or whatever it happens to be about diamond mining, you can just say diamond mining is a controversial issue, for example, or you could say there's much debate about the proper age to give teens a cell phone. Or you could say author A has a different viewpoint than author B on blank. And so that formula, they basically used a variation of that here in that perfect example of the topic sentence where they say both the press release and the letter to the editor offer positions that are supported by both fact and opinion. So you can see there's a similarity there to the topic sentence formula. Author A has a different viewpoint than author B on blank. So a little bit different, but same idea. All right, so that would be the topic sentence. So now let's look at, in their introduction, how the perfect essay, how the writer talked about both author A's position and author B's position. So they say the press release seeks to extort the new bill for expansion of Highway 17, while the letter argues that the passing of the bill could prove detrimental to the district. So this is very clear, and the writer very clearly lays out both positions. So that's what you want to do. Just spell out exactly what both positions are. So you want to understand the main idea of both passages, and in your introductory paragraph, you want to just restate both of the main ideas here. All right, so the writer is summarizing both viewpoints in 1 sentence. And like I said, you can do it in 1 sentence or in 2. And this is a perfectly good way to do it right here. So the only thing is that I would caution you, if you're not confident that you can use commas directly, just put both as a separate sentence. So you could just say, the press release seeks to extort the new bill for expansion of Highway 17, period. On the other hand, comma, the letter, and you could do it that way, all right? But if you want to do it in 1 sentence, that's fine too. Okay, so now let's look at the most important part, which is the thesis statement. And again, the thesis statement just says what the claim is about which position is best supported. So we've already seen here that there's 2 positions. There's 2 positions here, right? So the letter's arguing that passing of the bill could be bad for the district, and the press release is basically saying that they seek to extort the new bill for expansion of the highway here. So we see that there's 2 sides to the story here. Which side is the author going to argue is better supported for the evidence? So that's what the author states in the thesis statement. So the thesis statement just says, while both sides make an acceptable case, the letter provides a stronger argument. So a good way to write a thesis statement, again, a thesis statement is just a fancy way of saying your statement of which position you're going to argue for, or which position you think is the better position that's better supported by the evidence. Okay, so to do that, you can just say something simply like this. Well, both sides make an acceptable case. The letter provides a stronger argument. Very simple and clear. So to anyone watching this right now, to anybody that would read this essay, there's no doubt left in your mind about which stance the writer is going to argue is the stronger argument based on the evidence. All right, so this is just a well-done example here of just clear and to the point. So now we go on and look at the body paragraph. So a good way to do a body paragraph, or the way to maximize your score, is to start off with a topic sentence, Okay, and then do an explanation and a refutation. So the refutation is basically where you take evidence from or you take opinions, or you take facts that you don't think are very credible from the essay that you don't agree with, or the essay that you don't believe is the best supported essay, and you take evidence or arguments from the superior passage, and you use that to explain how the writer of the weaker passage has it wrong. So that'll make more sense when we go through here. But basically, the important thing to do is start each with a topic sentence, and then you want to explain that topic sentence in the rest of the paragraph, and also explain why the other side has it wrong, or why the other article or passage has it wrong. And this will make more sense as we look at this perfect essay and how the writer did it here. So first of all, let's look at their topic sentence here. So they say, one example of the letter's stronger argument is the explanation that federal tax dollars pay for the road, as it will incorporate 6 different states, therefore eliminating this particular state's ability to strike the bill down. So they've just started off with a very clear topic sentence that tells us exactly what the writer is going to be arguing or talking about here in this paragraph. So this is a great job. So if we move on to the explanation and refutation, they say this provides with factual information that the district did not have a fair say in the bill. The notion that few residents will use the road that their tax dollars are providing is an opinion. However, a resident and small business owner in the town is more credible, and the awareness of the town's concern is compared to a representative who attended a few meetings in the town hall. So the writer shows how their argument is better with factual information, which is really good. So that's why I've bolded and underlined factual information, because that's a really, really good phrase to use in your own writing here, because what the writer is saying is, hey, this argument is better. They've proved it with factual information. All right, so the writer also states an opposing point of view and counters that by showing how it's weaker here, right? And we see that when the writer says that the notion that few residents will use the road that the tax dollars are providing is an opinion. Then they go on to say, however, a resident and a small business owner in the town is more credible in the awareness of the town's concern as compared to a representative who attended a few meetings in the town hall. So they're doing a counter argument here, right? So they're basically doing a refutation, and they're explaining why the letter has it right, or why the position in the letter is stronger. And so they did a great job there, right? And so these are just some words like credible and factual information. These are really good words that are fantastic to use in your own writing. All right, so another thing that I want to demonstrate here is the writer's use of transition words, like one example and however. These are great uses of transition words. So transition words and phrases are very, very, very important to boost your score, and you are going to be graded on your use of them. And so a really quick way and easy way to boost your score is just to include transition words in your writing, especially at the start of each body paragraph. All right, so you want to start each body paragraph off with a transition word. So here they've used one example. That's a great way to do it. So here are some transition words and phrases that you can use for starting a paragraph. So one example, another example, first, second, third, next, in addition, lastly, in the first place, and the second place. So these are some examples here. All right, and so most of these you're going to want to put a comma after. So if you say first, comma, you want to put a comma, or second, comma. All right, so for one example, you don't really need a comma. You don't need a comma after that, as we see here. One example, blah, 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 blah. All right, so these are good transition words to take notes on. So there's some others too, transition words and phrases to use for showing an example. So you could say, for example, to demonstrate, for instance, or to illustrate. And you could use these either to start off a paragraph, or you could use them within the paragraph. So you could start off with your topic sentence, and then you could say, for example, and you would write about an example from the text. All right, so some more transition words and phrases for contrast would be however, or in contrast. On the other hand, yet, but, or although. And what we see here is that the writer did a really strong job with this. They say however, and that's why I bolded that in green. So basically, words to show contrast. Contrast is when you're just drawing out the differences between two things. So for example, you could say this position, the author of passage 1 believes that this is better, and then you could say on the other hand, the author of passage 2 believes this, that kind of thing here. So where the writer says, the notion that few residents will use the road that their tax dollars are providing is an opinion, period. However, and so that kind of changes the direction. So however, just pay attention to words like that for contrast, all right? Okay, so now let's move on to the second body paragraph, looking at the topic sentence first. So another example of the better supported argument in the letters, the reference to the construction jobs is temporary. So this is just a very simple topic sentence, tells us what the topic of this whole paragraph is going to be about. So then they go on to do explanation and refutation throughout the body paragraph. So they say, the press release praises the new jobs created by the highway construction, as this is a valid point. However, the author of the letter is correct in the fact that the jobs will not create a boom in the district's economy or fill in the gap caused by the closures in the manufacturing plants, as the press release leads listeners to believe. Here, the writer goes directly into a refutation. All right, so the writer takes a point from the press release and acknowledges that, hey, this is a valid point, but then they immediately followed up by presenting the opposing point of view from the author of the letter. So that's a good job of a refutation here. So if we keep moving, they say, the road construction does not solve the long-term issue of unemployment in the town. In addition, the author of the letter counters the argument that new models, restaurants, and gas stations along the highway will create permanent jobs for the residents of the town. She explains that only minimum wage jobs will remain. This is a valid argument. Also, as unemployed residents that need enough income to support a household would not be much better off. Providing restaurant or motel jobs is very unlikely to feed or support an entire family. It will not pick up the laid-off employees by the manufacturing plants who may have worked for many years towards promotions and a pension. So again here, I've highlighted some words here that the author has done a good job using here, right? So we see that countering an argument is really powerful, right? And so this phrase here, counters the argument, it just directly states how the letter counters an argument or series of arguments that's being made in the other passage here. So the writer is saying that the author of the letter counters the argument of the opposing author. So look at this phrase here, counters the argument. That's really good, okay, to use. And so they say that note that restaurants is spelled incorrectly here. Okay, so here's what I wanted to, this is what I wanted to point out about restaurants here. So note that they say restaurants, the author, he or she uses the word restaurants here, and it is spelled incorrectly, but I've just highlighted this by bolding it and underlining it just to point out that, hey, it doesn't matter if your spelling is incorrect. You're not going to be scored on spelling. So this person who got a perfect score, they misspelled a word, but it doesn't really matter in this case at all because they still got a perfect score because spelling doesn't count on your test. So don't worry about your spelling unless you spell something so incorrectly that you spell a different word or that it's impossible to tell what you were trying to say. So they also used quotes here, which is really, really good. So if you're ever unsure of what to do or unsure of what to say, just take a quote directly from the argument. So they have correctly used a quote here when they say only minimum wage jobs will remain. All right, and so I've highlighted valid argument here with bold and underlined because that's another really good phrase that you can use in your own writing when it makes sense to use. So you could say another valid argument or this is a valid argument. Okay, and so then we see just a lot of evidence from the passage being used here when the writer says this is a valid argument also as unemployed residents and blah, 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 blah. So a lot going on here that we can learn from. And so as always, I also have highlighted some transition words. So like we see another example. So that's a great way to start off each body paragraph. So the first body paragraph, you can say first example, or you could say something like that. The first example here, something like that. Or you could say one example, as the writer said, in the first body paragraph. Then the other two body paragraphs, you could start them just by saying another example, as this writer has done here, who got a perfect score. And so we also see the use of however, and we see another transition word here that's highlighted in green. We see in addition. So this is another transition phrase, I should say, not a transition word. So just note that just adding these transition words and phrases and using them correctly throughout your writing is really, really powerful. It's a great way to boost your score, and you are going to be scored on your use of transition. So just by sprinkling these words into your writing in the correct places, you are going to boost your score. So let's look at the body paragraph number 3, particularly the topic sentence. So it says, another example of the letter's stronger argument is the author's explanation for the 2001 study. And so I really like the word stronger argument here because that's just making it very, very clear that you understand what the prompt was, because the prompt, again, is to have you write about which is a stronger argument. So just a clear and direct topic sentence where they're talking about a study here. And hopefully that noise isn't being picked up on the mic. My cat is jumping around in the background. But anyway, so here we go on to body paragraph 3. So she concedes that the representative is correct in citing that bypasses are proven to reduce noise and traffic in town, but she argues that the study shows a negative effect on local businesses. This piece of the study was not mentioned by Representative Walz or the press release, and it is a proven fact. This draws more credibility to the argument in the letter. Also, although it is a speculation, it is more reasonable that the travelers will stick to the main highway and not venture miles off their path into small town when chain gas stations, restaurants, and motels are conveniently located directly at the highway exits. It is less likely that old roads in the town will become historic locations, attracting tourists and boosting small business sales. Okay, so some notes here. So after the topic sentence, right, we see that the writer is restating or summarizing something from the passage, and this works very, very well here. So if you're ever unsure of what to do in your body paragraph, and if you haven't been listening or if you've been kind of daydreaming a little bit, make sure that you get back in here, right, because this is what I'm about to say here is a very important way to boost your score. So what you can do if you're unsure of what to say in your body paragraph, lay down that topic sentence first, and then in the next sentence, you can just simply restate or summarize something from the passage that supports that topic. So note the author just says here, she concedes that the representative, and basically in doing this, the author of this essay is just restating something from the passage, right? And so that's always something good to do. Restate things from the passage in your own words, okay, if you're not sure what to say, and use quotes as we said before. And so also notice again how the writer is bringing up a point from the letter and then showing how the press release either was missing the point or that the press release gets it wrong, which is exactly what you want to do here. So concedes is really another great word here. Okay, proven fact is another amazing phrase. So look at how throughout this essay, the writer keeps using these strong words like credibility and proven fact, that's two words, and these strong words and phrases like facts and prove and stuff like that, credibility. These are all really good words. This is what you want to do in your writing, is you want to show that one passage is stronger than the other, and the best way to do that is to mention this has more facts, this has proven facts, this has more credibility, or look at the weaker argument or the weaker passage and say this lacks credibility and explain why. All right, so this is just a great job here with this paragraph. And so lastly, this person got a perfect score here, and I want to just point out, I've highlighted the ending here in pink just to give my thoughts on speculation here. So the author says, although it is speculation, so speculation, if you're unfamiliar with what that word means, as some who are listening to this might be, speculation is just like guessing. You're making guesses based off of not fact, but by your own experience or your own opinion. And so you can speculate in an essay, certainly, all right, but you want to make sure that you're not speculating very often. So some students, when I look at their writing, they are speculating throughout the whole thing. They're just sharing their own thoughts and opinions on the issue. That's okay to do some of the time, as we see here. This writer who got a perfect score on the essay, okay, did speculate here. So it's okay to do that, but you want to make sure that there is a sound basis of evidence and facts and strong logical arguments throughout your essay here. All right, so if you've got the basics, which are using evidence from the passage, so taking things like research studies and facts and stronger arguments, and another thing you can do is look at what's missing. So if you look at the one essay and you see that the author is talking about a point here, right? And then you look at the other essay and then you see that that person is either not even mentioning that point, okay, or that they're kind of omitting something that the other passage said was true, like they're trying to hide something that's kind of sketchy, right? So that looks like the person who read that passage might be trying to hide something and that they lack credibility, okay? And so as the author has done here multiple times, where the author says this piece of the study was not mentioned by Representative Walz, or the press release and it is a proven fact. So again, like that's just another way of stating that, hey, in the letter, the author of the letter acknowledged this and makes an argument about how a study shows a negative effect on local businesses. However, the other side of the story, in the press release, they don't even acknowledge this fact, so that shows that there's not as much credibility here in this passage. So again, just be careful with speculation. Stick mainly to facts and evidence and base your arguments around that. But it is okay to speculate. It can help your score. It can be a good thing to do. So it's not wrong to speculate like this, but you want to be careful and make sure that your whole essay is in speculation, that you have a sound basis in facts and in arguments that are being made by both passages, and then you can speculate all you want. So again, I've just highlighted some transition words here, like another example and also here. So just another way to boost your score by doing that. All right, so now let's just look at the conclusion here. So the conclusion, they start off by saying, despite the argument and evidence given by the press release, it appears that the letter to the editor offers a stronger case. So you always want to start your conclusion with just a restatement of the main idea. So this should be very similar to your thesis statement, right? So you can open up your conclusion by just restating your original point. Okay, so this should be very similar to your thesis statement. So the writer is just concluding here again with a brief argument, and by restating the argument and with an analysis of the credibility of each part of the text. And so that's, again, if we go throughout the rest of the conclusion here, all right, the author is just saying, again, the author's ideas are backed up by, or the author of the essay is talking about the author of the letter when they say, the author's ideas are backed up by logical explanations and facts with few speculations. Though the press release offers some fact, it is mainly speculated with anticipations and hopes, driven to overshadow any doubts and quell any concerns. The letter is penned by a resident of the town and owner of a business subject to first-hand opinions of the citizens of the district. The press release is pushed by an elected representative who, upon visiting the town a number of times and consulting a small percentage of the constituents, is convinced she understands the majority. Although both parties may very well have the best interests of the district in mind, and either position could be correct, it is clear that the letter provides a better supported argument. So this is just a beautiful conclusion. So the conclusion can be very, very similar to your introduction. This is an elaborate conclusion. Yours doesn't have to be this long or this elaborate. In fact, I often advise students that in your conclusion, just make it similar to your introduction. Just switch up the wording a little bit here. Restate your main argument and restate a couple of the reasons why you believe that the passage you picked is better supported, and you can mention why the other passage is weaker again, and then just make your exit. All right, you don't usually want to bring up anything new in the conclusion. So anything new in your conclusion that you didn't talk about earlier, consider trying to add that to one of your body paragraphs, because your conclusion is mainly just to conclude the piece and wrap things up. It's not the place to introduce new ideas. All right, and so also just keep it clear and to the point, and as soon as you've said everything that you need to say, make your exit and the essay. No need to spend time going on and on and on in the conclusion once you've said what you need to say. So this is a great example of a conclusion, but yours doesn't even have to be this long to maximize your score. So let's look at some of the strengths and the main takeaways here. So first of all, the writer here, this person had very, very strong structure and organization, right? So there was just very, very few errors here, right? They followed a very logical sentence here. And actually, when I say very few errors, I really didn't see any errors with their structure. It was very, very logical, right? So remember when I showed you earlier these slides here, such as how to write the 5-paragraph essay, your intro, body, conclusion, right? This person followed this 5-paragraph essay format to the T and got a perfect score using it, right? So also the introduction, all right, they had their topic sentence and then they acknowledged both positions and had a clear thesis statement, all right? So that, again, they just followed this 5-paragraph essay format and got a perfect score with this. So the structure and organization was clear, in the body paragraphs too were very clear, with starting with topic sentences and then giving explanations and also refutations here. And they use transition words and phrases to start each paragraph, and also they have them sprinkled throughout the piece here, which is what you want to do to boost your score. Now, each paragraph evaluates both sides of the issue, and so one of the main strengths here is that the writer kind of gets a dialogue going between the two passages. So it's kind of like what you want to think of here is a dialogue or a conversation between the author of the press release and the author of the letter here. So you want to kind of see if you can get them going back and forth here, or take an idea from the press release and then look at how the letter writer has an opposing view, and you can state both of those different opinions, and you can explain them here. So you want to kind of notice, especially here, how what this writer did was the writer goes back and forth between stating points in the letter and then explaining how the press release has the opposite view, and then explaining what the difference is and why one is best supported. So this is a really, really fantastic example of how to evaluate both sides of the issue. And the writer is also very, very fair to both sides, which is what you want to do. So even if the side that you don't agree with, okay, when you write about that side, make sure that you respect that side and you say, you know what, there were both strengths and weaknesses in both articles here, right? So there are strengths in this person's passage, even though it's not best supported by the evidence, okay? So one thing, and this person got a perfect score here, so there's not much to criticize, but I wouldn't say in either position could be correct, right? So in the last sentence, they say, although both parties may very well have the best interests of the districts in mind, and either position could be correct, it is clear that the letter provides a better supported argument. You don't necessarily need to say either position could be correct. I mean, in this case, it didn't hurt the person, right? So there's not much to say to pick apart a perfect score, because the person got a perfect score, but it's simply not necessary to say in either position could be correct, because the whole point of this is to pick a position and argue why it's correct. So you don't need to say that. You want to acknowledge the strengths of both sides, sure, but don't worry about saying either position could be correct, because your whole point here is to make the argument that the position you picked is the best. So that's just a minor thing, but just keep that in mind here. So also evidence from the text, the use of evidence from the text was very strong here, and there were no major grammar rules or punctuation errors here. Every sentence ended with a proper punctuation, like a period or something like that, or a question mark. But the main thing is to stick to periods, right? So as you see throughout this, I think most of the sentences here end in period. So there's not much of a reason to use an exclamation mark or a question mark. All right, you can if you want to or if you think it fits, but usually just stick to a period at the end of each sentence. And then after that period, just capitalize the first letter of the next word. All right, so if you just do that, for the most part, your punctuation will be good. And grammar rules here were also followed very well. Okay, and so this was just a solid example of how to do an essay here. So now what I want you to do is think, what's one thing, what's the top thing, the top lesson that you learned here in this example here, and post it down in the comments below. That's going to help you because it's going to cement that in your head and you'll remember it longer, but it's also going to help people who are watching this because they'll see that and they'll learn from that, and hopefully you can benefit others as well in our GED Test Prep Champions community here we've got going on.